Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, talk a lot about the Saints, the LSU Tigers, the Tulane Green Wave. To break it down for us, one of the best we got in the business. We call him Larry Legend. Larry Holder of The Athletic joins us on the program. Larry, how you doing? I'm
good, Ian. Man, last time I was here, you didn't have the goatee rocking. You're trying to look hip.
I'm trying to. It's very difficult at this stage. How are you? I'm good.
Look, extremely busy, obviously,
Yes.
in New Orleans sports and around the region, and football specifically when you've got LSU in a big bowl game, Saints rocking and rolling, Tulane actually in a good bowl.
Right.
And I know we're going to talk about it later in the show, but I think it's just more intriguing than they could have even imagined, the fact that they're playing ULL. I think that's a fun mix to the bowl season.
It really is. Larry's with The Athletic now, and can I just throw a plug in there? It is an amazing site. It really is. The best writers in the country are on this site, and of course, we have our own Athletic NOLA site. And you guys are doing just a bang-up job. I mean, when I get up in the morning and I'm looking to catch up, it's one of the first sites I go to.
Well, I appreciate it, Eric. And look, it's something that, and I've been on here since I've been with The Athletic. And obviously, a lot of people know me from covering the Saints for forever and with the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com. And I can just tell you, it's a different approach than what we were doing at NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. And yet, it's something that I appreciate every day that I'm there. We go in depth. We're not rushing something out there. We're in-depth analysis, in-depth features, and I couldn't be more prouder than the work we're doing at theathletic.com/New Orleans. And it's not just New Orleans. We cover every market in the country.
That's the great part about it.
And that's the thing. And it's a subscription site again.
But it's very inexpensive. For a sports fan, it's really inexpensive.
Exactly. You can go buy a drink at the bar, and that's how much it would cost for you for a month. For New Orleans terms, obviously. But no, it's like myself, I cover Saints, but I'm broader spectrum. I'm doing LSU. I've done some Tulane, which is really, to me, from being New Orleans guy. I grew up in River Ridge. We're at WLAE. I grew up probably like 5 minutes away from here.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool to bring the good stories out in New Orleans, but it's also on a national platform. I mean, we literally just had a story out from one of our college football writers where she was able to guess what? They might extend the playoff.
Right.
But that's the scope. You get local scope, you get national scope. Go check it all out at theathletic.com.
Got to. If you're a sports fan, got to check it out. Of course, you'll be able to get this guy's writing as well. Let's start off with the Saints, 11-2, 28-14 winner over Tampa Bay. You were in Tampa on Sunday. I did not expect them to come out as sluggish as they did. Again, I thought they got physically dominated by the Dallas Cowboys on that Thursday night game. They had a little bit of time to kind of lick their wounds before they go into Tampa. We knew that there was a possibility there would be a monsoon. Luckily, that came before the game, as it was mentioned. Again, the field was covered. But it was like 6 quarters where this team was just so sluggish, almost 7. It took a Taysom Hill block punt to kind of get everything kind of ramped up again. You did an in-depth article this week on maybe some of the things that may be affecting this team down the line, some of the question marks. One of those on the offensive side is the wide receivers. But before we get into specifics, just overall, what do you think is the issue on why this thing kind of bogged down for an offense that a few weeks ago, nobody could stop?
I'd say Teron Armstead, number one. And I think this offense gets immediately better when Teron Armstead returns. They won't have to worry about Jermon Bushrod needing help and say, man, we got to be very right side of the offense dominant as opposed to the left side, where even though beforehand Teron Armstead and Andres Pete, they didn't feel like it was as strong, say, running the football, because they love running behind Warford and Ramchick, and I get that. Warford is a road grader, and that's his specialty. But when you have Bushrod in there, look, I've known Jermon Bushrod for a long time, and he understands that he's just trying to hang on, and he knows his role. He knows he's flawed, and I think the Saints, even though they're getting by, they know when Armstead comes back, things will probably go back to normal. I would say if the Saints played Dallas again, which they could,
yes,
they would be well more equipped with just that one player. And it's amazing to say that, but he is that much of a difference maker. When healthy, he has been lights out. He would have been easily a Pro Bowl guy, no problem. He still might make it.
Yes.
But that's how good he was been. And I feel like that is the one cog that if he comes back, which I assume he's going to come back, that total difference maker for the offense.
Well, you would think that this would be the week he would come back. Hopefully it would be. I mean, again, you want to get him at least back into game shape, because let's face it, Saints went out. They've got a bye week. If you decide to sit the starters in the last game of the year, depending on what's going on, then you got a couple other weeks where guys are not playing. So I would expect, if he's healthy enough, that he'll be back. I understood maybe not last week, especially with the soft conditions. You don't want to put him out there if he's not 100%. But this week, again, a Monday night game, you've had more than enough time to maybe heal up. I would hope he would be out there. They did sign Derek Newton. Of course, Michael Olaw goes out last week with the injury. This was a guy that was playing pretty well for the Houston Texans before he blew out both knees. It'll be interesting to see ultimately, as a stopgap guy, if they need him, what he can do. But I think they signed him to a 2-year deal, so maybe that's a situation, maybe more of a look-see for next year.
Well, you throw him a bone. Right. I think that's part of it. Maybe they would like to see what he has for next year, because he could possibly be the Bushrod.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Next year.
Right.
Absolutely. But no, he's replacing Michael Olaw, who, as we saw during the game, he had a rough injury. Thankfully for him, it wasn't as severe, but still you put him on IR,
yes, and
he would be a reserve lineman. But, you look at Newton. Can he play immediately? I don't know.
Probably
but
not.
I just think last week, here's the code. If you're paying attention to what happens media-wise, when you talk to the media at length, it usually means you're either really close or you are coming back. So I thought he was coming back. I'm referring to Teron Armstead.
Yes.
So I thought he was going to come back this past week. Didn't happen. He was limited twice. Didn't practice on the Friday, and then didn't play. I assume he's going to play.
Yes.
And he's you could tell, rip-roaring, ready to go. And he's had to deal with these injuries a lot, and I don't know if they stop for him because I've talked about this with some people kind of off air and Twitterverse.
Yes.
Where he might be too big for his body. I think that actually might be why you see these injuries and such, because he's such an athletic guy. I think he might be too big for his frame, and that's why you feel like muscles can tear and such. But I think he will be back, and the Saints can certainly use it.
Absolutely. It's amazing. You think about Zach Strief going to the booth. It looked like he still had something left in the tank. Obviously, he decided, didn't want to go through training camp, wanted to move on. But you get a situation where Armstead goes out. In the past, you felt pretty good, where you could flip Ramchick if you needed to. You'd have a guy like Strief. Now you brought in Bushrod. He lasted a little bit, but as you mentioned, you can only kind of count on him for a few games here. It may be something they'll be looking at down the line here, to try to bring some added depth, especially at that tackle position.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I assume they're going to draft someone. And let's be frank, do they want to move forward with Andres Pete? Because he's going to be through his 4th year.
Yes.
He does have a 5th year, but it's all base salary. None of it's guaranteed. If they don't feel like paying him a big bump in salary, which from what I gather could be $10 million because of how high he was drafted.
Yes.
I wouldn't pay him that.
Right.
No one on that offensive line is getting paid that outside of Armstead. Not even Larry Warford, who's a Pro Bowl guy, and you signed him in a free agent deal. It's not worth that. So what do you do there? So you could be, at some point, very soon, maybe going after another guard.
Right. Well, what's interesting is you make that point. They're in the same boat with Eli Apple on that as well, if they pick up the 5th-year option. His 5th-year option from where he was drafted is going to be big money. And you say, okay, Eli Apple is a guy you brought in as maybe a stopgap, maybe as a guy that could be your second corner for you, but you want to pay him like a second corner. That 5th-year option would be playing him like a first corner, a number 1 corner. I don't know if you want to do that. So similar situation between Pete and Apple as well.
Yeah, you got a couple years for Apple, but still, I'm not paying him like that.
Right.
No way.
No way.
I still, and I'm sure it's on your list. I still personally don't trust Eli Apple. I still don't.
Right. Well, and I don't think many people do. Let's go back to Pete for a moment, because he seems to have settled in as guard, and really, especially when Armstead is there, playing good. I mean, you look at when getting to the second level, making blocks, he's kind of found a home there. Now, again, you can't draft a tackle and then he moves to guard and pay him tackle money. What do you think happens there?
I'm curious to see, because when he's right, he's looked good. But
yes.
I feel like he's been battling some injuries this year, multiple injuries.
Since training camp, even the last year.
Well, that was stemming from last year.
Yes.
Into that, and then he had some other ailments, and I just don't know how much they want to invest in him long term. Is he as good as Larry Warford? No. And Larry Warford wouldn't be making as much as St. Andrews Pete if the 5th-year option, if that's the way it goes.
Right.
And so what do? We know how much they value guards. We've seen them invest in guards for years and years. And yet, do you want to invest in someone where you could look from left to right, he's the 5th best offensive lineman. And yet he's still pretty good.
No, he's not bad.
But he's not, if he's your 5th guy.
He's not elite.
No, he's certainly not elite. No. Right. And I don't even know if, say, Warford is elite. I'd say he's Pro Bowl caliber, elite. When I think elite guards, I think 2011, and I think Jerry Evans and Carl Nicks.
Yes.
No one of those guys are that. But still, I think Pete, you got to be smart with him, and I can't see them investing big time dollars in him.
Yeah, nor do I. Let's talk about the wide receiver position. We talked about it a little bit before the show. I've asked every analyst that's come on my radio show about these guys. A few weeks ago, we were throwing bouquets and sticking our chest out because 4 undrafted free agents scored a touchdown. Last few weeks, teams getting very physical with these wide receivers, not getting separation. It's a little bit of an issue. Brandon Marshall cut on Wednesday. They bring in Eric Swoop, who was a tight end out of Miami, similar, I guess, to a Jimmy Graham type, a guy that was an ex-basketball player. I'm sure they're going to take a look-see at him. But Marshall never even hit the field for this team. And a lot of people are saying, well, Brandon Marshall may be the answer. No, he's not the answer. He's out the door. What are you seeing when you're looking at the All-22? What are you seeing when you're at the game live in terms of wide receiver separation, but outside of a guy like Michael Thomas?
Well, Michael Thomas it's not like he's the speedster, and he's always going to deal with some contended catches, especially when he's running slants and such, and he's catching footballs in traffic, and because people are now surrounding him more. It's not just one-on-one. It could be 2, it could be 3, all these bracket coverages. So they know who he is now. And I think you referenced it maybe a couple minutes ago. I did an article in The Athletic about a bunch of stats and such. And as far as the separation with receivers, and this is through a stat service we use called Sport Radar, and the separation with receivers from when they catch the ball, it's basically at the catch, how far away is the defender? And among the Saints, they're ranked 31st in the NFL, meaning they're not getting separation. And you could see it, but when you look at the numbers, it's even more eye-glaring. that the fact that, say, Keith Kirkwood can't get open, Austin Carr can't get open, Traquan Smith, people draped on him, and Michael Thomas. And this is look, it's different for some guys. Like I said, Thomas's numbers are more skewed, and his numbers, you look at the top receivers, their numbers aren't great, but that's because people pay attention to them. So that means you're leaning on others. But if your other guys aren't getting open, not going to be good. Right. And also, people banging the drum. They hear Brandon Marshall. Oh my gosh, big name. It's that and the other. There's a reason why he's bounced around from team to team to team to team to team, and especially in his latter years. And he even knew he was tenuous on the roster. He understood that. There's a reason why they signed Dez Bryant to start. Dez Bryant, I felt like if he were healthy, he would be playing. Brandon Marshall, not so much, obviously released, and he knew, like I said, he knew if any position needed help, they'd tap him on the shoulder. He was constantly looking around, you know, looking for the axe man to come get him. But his number, I don't know I forget the exact number of what the Saints' total average separation was that ranked 31st. I can tell you though, Brandon Marshall's average separation when he was in Seattle was a yard less than the Saints' average, which tells you he's really not getting open. Right. And there's a reason why Seattle moved on and this, that, and the other. And he was basically there as a stopgap in case something happened. But like that's just something the Saints are going to have to contend with, and we'll see if a Ted Ginn comes back. And also, let's just think about it in these terms. People talk about wide receiver core. The Saints planned on Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn, Cam Meredith. Obviously, that hasn't been the case. Right. And so now they're having to work around it and cater to the offense and try to figure things out.
With that said, do you anticipate Ginn coming back? Well, we were told week 15, but he would have been designated to practice the last couple of weeks leading to 15, right? Is it he's not ready? They're not ready? What's the situation in your opinion?
They're being coy. I know they keep throwing his name out there as a possibility. And so I'm not 100% certain.
Is he a must?
I think he is a need.
Yeah.
You know, because we go must, need, want, say when we're doing free agency.
Absolutely, yeah.
He would certainly help because if he were good to go, he's definitely a deep threat. And he's definitely someone who you see him as a defensive coordinator, you could see his name on there. Okay, we got to pay attention to him. And all these other guys, no, you don't. No way.
They actually had him running more slant routes this year early.
Well, actually, last year he was definitely more diverse in the routes. And last year he was. It's amazing to see this. He was one of the best. We talk about Michael Thomas, which catch and being thrown to. Ted Ginn was actually top 3 in the league, which that is not his reputation.
No, not at all.
Now, this past year, you know, when he was playing, he was shaky. He became kind of that Ted Ginn experience, that thrill rod where it's highs and lows and dips and turns. But if he comes back, which I'm not saying with certainty he will, but if he does come back, he would certainly help this team.
When you look at Ted Ginn, when you look at the rest of the wide receivers, and we know that the playoffs, the refs let the teams play a little bit more, especially on defense.
Well, the refs need to do a little bit more than that. They've been pretty rotten overall this year.
Can I say just a quick pivot? The NFL has to reevaluate all the officials. You know, first of all, they're aging, okay, and you're seeing guys that you know it seems like some of those guys have been there since the 70s, but obviously they haven't been. They've got to get younger. They've got to skew a little bit younger in terms of their officials, and they've got to get some better officials as well. Been too many problems going forward. I read something the other day where a writer suggested that every single call should be up for debate in terms of instant replay now because of the level of officiating you have in the NFL.
Well, I feel like technology is there.
Right.
And also the speed of the game is as fast as ever. And let's be honest, there's so much action and so many moving parts to an NFL game. How can you keep tabs on everything? Just go look back to the Dallas game. They're missing blatant calls.
Right.
Obviously, the Jalen Smith to the face of Alvin Kamara, blatant.
Right.
The face mask to Dak Prescott that wasn't called.
Right in front of them.
Right in front of them, blatant.
Right.
It's both sides everywhere. You're seeing it week to week to week. And if you can have Hawkeye in tennis, why can't you have this technology? I'm sure it exists, but it also maybe goes back to the old baseball. Oh, you know, there's got to be a human element to this thing.
Not really.
It doesn't really. How about we just get it right?
Right, exactly. Getting back to my original point, do you see these receivers struggling in the playoffs when it gets more physical?
Absolutely. I think the fact that you have Austin Carr and Keith Kirkwood and Traquan Smith and Tommy Lee Lewis, none of those guys scare you. None of them. And we've seen when they've gotten separation, Traquan Smith dropped a touchdown. That could have helped. And Keith Kirkwood had some drops too. These guys are who they are because they are who they are. They're either young guys or undrafted rookies, and they're not playing originally on purpose. There's a reason why Ted Ginn was your starter. There's a reason why you went and paid just about $9 million for 2 years for Cam Meredith.
Right.
There's a reason why you do this. There's a reason why you go out and get Des Bryant, who, like I said, would have played.
Makes you wonder about the Willie Snead situation, doesn't it?
When you fall into the doghouse, you're out.
Right.
I mean, we've seen that for years. Jimmy Graham, I could tell you, he was in a doghouse. Kenny Stills, doghouse.
Right.
Willing to unload these guys. Obviously, Jimmy Graham, I think that trade you could say, Saints were smart. Kenny Stills, probably not.
No.
He's playing well in Miami.
Right. And Miami won that deal.
Yeah, they won that deal. And so...
And I call that Seattle Saints deal with Unger and and Jimmy Graham and Lockett kind of a wash, because Lockett has turned out to be a pretty good receiver. They picked him with the draft choice that came over. Unger has been incredible for this team, and you know, Jimmy Graham was pretty good for Seattle. They just didn't, until the last year, they didn't realize how to use him and utilize him. You know, but I thought that was a pretty good deal for both
Stephon
sides.
Anthony.
Yeah, I mean but that's on the
that
Saints.
one blew up in your face.
But that one's on the Saints.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, they made the choice. The
Right.
pick was there.
Right.
They could have made a better choice. That was on them.
Well, Seattle made the choice with Lockett.
And they hit a bonanza on that.
Now they're doing it. Well, one of the reasons why Seattle didn't need Brandon Marshall.
Exactly. It's good with Lockett and some of those other young
Yeah,
receivers.
Doug
emerging.
Baldwin, of course, is a veteran stalwart. Absolutely.
Before I get to defense, because I can't wait to talk about the defense, let's talk about the special teams. They've added 3 coaches over the last few years. They've looked at special teams now as trying to get designated special teamers, okay, instead of saying just the third corner is going to be a special team. No, he's not going to be the third corner. He's our #1 special teams guy. They designated guys, going out and got guys that, again, are strictly special teamers. And then, of course, what we saw out of Taysom Hill this week with the block punt. It's amazing how Peyton has kind of transformed from when he first got here, where you're just trying to put a roster together, okay, to, again, now an emphasis on special teams. And you can't say it's not paying dividends. It's paying off.
Oh, absolutely. You talk to someone like Chris Banjo and Justin Hardy and those guys, even someone like Dwayne Washington. I noticed him, and it was just totally subtle, where he blocked a jammer so much where this past week in Tampa, Tommy Lee Lewis had all this open field. I forget if the return was big, but he just stonewalled this guy. And he's absolutely just a special teamer.
Right.
If he's running the football, it's garbage time.
Exactly.
Or Kamara and Ingram are injured. And so you see these guys, and it's certainly paid dividends. And they've certainly gotten their money's worth out of Mike Westhoff, getting him in there. And he's the one who has been really encouraging to say Taysom Hill. And it's funny to me how you have your third string quarterback and one of your starting defensive ends, Alex Okafor. Why would they ever converse? And now they're talking about strategy to block a kick or block a punt.
Yes.
And it's come up roses. Each of them have blocked punts. And I think it just goes to show you, while we could talk about stars all we want, and we will, but you need these key cogs all over the map, and they've got them. And it's pretty remarkable. And look, Taysom Hill is the urban legend now, and he's not even just a legend, urban legend. He's like a reality to where he can do all these things. And I think that there's a reason why you see Sean Payton excited about someone like him. There's a reason why you see teammates excited about someone like him, because he cares a hell of a lot. And They just want to win. And I feel like that's where this team goes. There's not a lot of me guys. It's a core unit. You have superstars, but they all buy in.
Yeah, and of course you got two great specialists in Lutz and Morstead, two of the best in the league. I was looking at the stats this week between Mahomes and Breeze for MVP. When you just look at it based on stats, you say, wow, Mahomes has got quite a lead there. Breeze struggled last 2 games. What do you think happens there?
I'd say if it were to end today, Patrick Mahomes would be the MVP. And it's because of the last 2 weeks. When it's that razor thin close,
yes,
it's going to take something a la the Heisman Trophy race. Tua Tagovailoa was winning the race the entire time.
No doubt.
Has a rough game in the SEC Championship. Kyler Murray thrives. Tua's out. That jumped it. I could tell you just on theathletic.com, we do a straw poll on the Heisman Trophy race every week. I'm part of the voters. And Tua was winning the entire time. And by the end, Kyler Murray won.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's part of it. Drew Brees, winning. You have a couple sluggish outings. And in this day and age, when Patrick Mahomes does a no-look pass, it's like a Heisman moment.
Oh, no, there's no doubt.
And so, look, Drew Brees might finish second again. He's been finished second again a lot.
It's amazing.
Yes.
It really is, considering, again, all the records he's broken, how he's carried this team. It's really unfortunate. Let's hope that, again, over the next 3 weeks, he'll put up some really big numbers, especially for me in fantasy. But he'll put up some really big numbers so that, again, we'll have a shot at MVP. Let's talk Mark Ingram for a minute. Mark Ingram's in a contract year, had the first 4 games suspended. Again, one of his highlights is going to be, I thought it was Grimes, but it was really Adams, dragging Adams, the safety for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, into the end zone. He has, and we've talked about this, on radio and TV, and you've discussed it as well in your columns. When he came to New Orleans, he came here as a guy from Alabama that, again, had holes open as wide as the Mississippi River, and it was easy for him. When he came to New Orleans, he had to learn how to be patient. He also had to learn how to be a physical runner. He had a lot of undrafted free agents around him that were running like it was their last carry, and I think that rubbed off on him. Then he had to learn how to be a great pass blocker, for Drew Brees, and ultimately, again, be humble enough to understand, even though I'm a Heisman Trophy winner and a #1 pick, that I'm going to have to, in this offense, I'm going to have to defer a bit. He's turned into a very good all-around back. He's a guy that can block, he can run, he's a physical guy, he can catch the ball in the backfield, and he's one of the leaders in that locker room, one of the emotional leaders in that locker room. But it's contract time. And he could demand some pretty decent money on the open market for a team that may be looking for a running back. What do you think his future in New Orleans is?
I think it depends on how much money he wants to earn. And yet, does he want to leave New Orleans? I think a lot of it will be on him. I do think the Saints will give him, I'll say, a fair offer, but they're not going to break the bank. And I don't know if any real team is going to totally break the bank for him. And
but they may be able to offer more money than the Saints would be willing to offer.
There's guaranteed more money can be out there for him.
Right.
But you're going to go to a bad team in a bad situation.
Sure. But you may be getting the lion's share of the carries too.
I think also you got to think of, okay, this is going to be Mark Ingram's last deal.
Right.
Outside of maybe a 1-year deal.
True. Agreed.
So if you want to go get paid, more power to you. I'm pro player.
Me too.
Get your cash. Do whatever you want. I think, say, if the Saints won the Super Bowl, I could easily see Mark Ingram going to chase money. A la Scott Vegeta, the same thing.
Right.
He went to Cleveland, got overpaid, but that's what you do. And so I am, though, curious to see how this goes. I do, like I said, I do think it depends on how the season plays out.
Right.
If Mark Ingram feels like he could still be a viable part of this offense, and what do the Saints think they can get to maybe complement Alvin Kamara? Do I see Alvin Kamara as, say, maybe a #1 running back? I don't know. You're shaking your head. I think maybe so. I think maybe so.
I just worry about the wear and tear. You can see it even now, the wear and tear on him. Look, I think he has the ability to be, okay, but I just wonder about the wear and tear on. Look, he's in the NFL today, you're splitting carries no matter what, okay, but to be the guy, I don't know. Maybe in a couple years from now, maybe so. I don't know, maybe as soon as next year. But then there's the the leadership part and the emotional leader in which he's been. I mean, you were there. You're in the locker room every day. You see what's going on. And he wasn't there for the first 4 games. And all we kept hearing was, man, there's a void in the locker room. Mark's not here. Mark's not here. He got there, and of course, again, not that he was the spark that went him on that winning streak, but again, he obviously is a big part of the leadership within that locker room. And there's been an emphasis on leadership this time around with Peyton.
I agree, and yet Saints still did go 3-1 without him,
even
though there's this void.
Right.
Because normally
it was a tough 3-1 though.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough 3-1. But normally in that situation, you would have someone there the entire time. So not Mike Gillislee, who was a hot mess.
Right.
But I just think that for the Saints, you got to value, okay, how much money can we give to Ingram before we got to really pay Kamara?
Right.
I think that's part of the question.
And not just that. I mean, look, the NFL salary cap went up that expands for next year from $177.2 million to either 187 to 191.2 million. So that's about a little bit over a $10 million jump. Michael Thomas is coming up. You got all these young rookies that have shined now that they're going to be looking for their second contracts very soon. And, Mickey Loomis, obviously, I think they have a plan on what they want to do in terms of paying these guys. But, you draft well. Eventually, you got to pay the piper. We've seen it in San Francisco. We've seen it in Seattle. We've seen it in other places where they've had really good teams with really good young players. They come that second contract, and next thing you know, they can't pay them all.
Well, at least for the Saints' sake, they can space them out. Worry about Michael Thomas 1 year. Worry about Kamara the next. You worry about Lattimore and Ramczyk the next. And basically, if Marcus Williams can play at a good level, you basically worry about him the same year you worry about Kamara. And yet we're talking about Michael Thomas. They don't have to pay him this offseason.
Right.
They could let it ride. They could franchise tag him. Now that risks future discourse and bitter feelings down the line.
Especially for a guy that's played as well as he has over his first 3 years and is probably expecting to get paid this season.
And they also traded Brandon Cooks away. Right. And all signals pointed to they want to pay Michael Thomas and not Brandon Cooks.
I would agree with that 100%. Boston Scott plucked off the practice squad. I know it was a fan favorite. I know your colleague Jeff Duncan did something in the Times-Picayune on Wednesday, talking about all the players that the Saints have either drafted or drafted, end up releasing, players that they've cut, players that they traded, all ending on NFL rosters this year. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing,
but it also goes to show you how well the Saints have constructed their roster in the first place. And so I know people are going to look back and be like, what happened in this draft class? Well, if Marcus Davenport and Traquan Smith, if they are longtime players, then no one's really going to care. But I don't think anyone's even going to look back and say, well, if they do, I'd say they're being silly. What happened? Well, all right, these draft picks, I'm sorry, they are. Yeah,
Natrell Jameson, why is he,
Well, also, they're 11-2 right now. They're in the win now. Yeah, they're winning now. So, I don't want to hear it. And you're in the back part of the draft. It's harder to draft well back in that part. And I've had someone and a few people ask, I don't care that they're 11-2. Is Marcus Davenport still worth the pick? Well, Cam Jordan wasn't Cam Jordan his rookie year.
That's right.
Come on. Let's calm down.
No, and look, let's face it. That's been their mindset. They figure, look, they planned for this. They figured they were going to draft late. They thought they had a very good team, possible Super Bowl contender, and they played this accordingly. They treated every draft choice as the high next round pick. So the first round pick was looked at as a high second round pick. The second round pick was looked at as a high third. The third round pick they gave up for Teddy Bridgewater, they looked at as a high fourth. So I mean, again, I get where they're coming from. And look, the proof is in the success thus far.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned Teddy Bridgewater. We didn't even talk about him with free agency. I think that's going to be a tricky situation for
As
Teddy.
do why. And because he's going in today's NFL, where you have so many, there are opportunities for starting quarterbacks. He is a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL. Does he want to sit behind Breeze 2 or 3 more years?
I think that's up to him and what the Saints are willing to dole out as far as paying him.
Yes.
And say, all right, if we pay him I don't know, $19 million a year, and you obviously backload it, that shows confidence that you feel like he could be the starter. But if you lowball him, he's going to want to go somewhere else. So,
absolutely.
And you lose a third-round pick.
But it was an insurance pick this year. You use that basically as insurance in case something happened to Brees.
That's certainly the Philadelphia Eagles. Right. They saw what happened last year. They're not going to risk doing that. Right. And I would look at any backup in the NFL. Teddy Bridgewater is easily better than any of them, and better than many starting quarterbacks. I would
agree. And the Eagles are in that position right now with Wentz looking like he has a back injury, and Foles now probably going to take this team if they have a chance to make the playoffs to maybe the second season if they can go that far.
Right.
All right, we're going to take a break. We come back. We'll talk some defense when we come back with the Saints. We'll get into LSU. We'll talk Tulane as well. Larry Holder, the Athletic, is our guest. I'm your host, Eric Asher. You're watching Inside New Orleans.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Larry Holder, the Athletic, is our guest tonight. Larry, let's talk defense. I was telling you in the break, and I've said this to the radio audience as well. I'm giddy, okay, because around these parts, been a long time since you played some really good defense, some legit defense. I was reading Brian Baldinger this morning, said that the defense had moved up to number 10 in the NFL. He thinks they'll move up as high as number 5. They keep playing the way they are. Start off shaky. You guys were at training camp. I was questioning, I don't know if you remember. Come on, guys. You guys are talking about championship defense. What happened against Tampa? What happens against Cleveland? You barely can get out of Atlanta with a win. But since then, wow, this defense is playing lights out. One of the reasons why, interior of the defensive line, really the first and second levels, but got to give a lot of credit to Charlotte Rankins. 8 sacks as an interior defensive lineman, only behind Donald, who has 16.5 sacks, which is, again, that's Superman sacks. But interior defensive lineman, 8 sacks, and it's not out of the realm of possibility. He doesn't get double digits before the end of the season.
I'm going to assume he's going to get double digits at the end of the season. When's the last time we've seen an interior defensive lineman? Leroy Glover?
Leroy Glover.
Had to be Leroy Glover in 2000.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So the fact that you have the inside and outside mix, and you also see, look, Alex Okafor has bounced back from that Achilles injury. Who knows how well he would have played. He's been not necessarily in the sacks, but certainly good against the run. Definitely viable. I mean, he's playing what you hope to play.
Yes.
Very good. But the fact that Cam Jordan has a complement where, say, Rankins gets double teamed, it frees up Cam Jordan. They double team or triple team sometimes Cam Jordan. Rankins could get through there, slide through there. He has been what the Saints hoped for since 2016. Right. And I mentioned it in the last segment. Sometimes it takes time for these guys to develop. Cam Jordan wasn't Cam Jordan when he was first drafted.
And remember, Rankins had the broken leg the first year, so that really kind of retarded his progress as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And he had even though they played well last year as a team overall, he didn't feel like he had as good of a season. And now you're seeing the guy who everyone thought when they picked him that high, and it was basically a unanimous pick. Every one of us pegged that because they needed it. And now he's playing like the guy you expected. So I just feel like it's certainly, when someone asks me, all right, why is it this Saints defense better? It's absolutely because of the defensive front. David Onyemata starting to play very well. I feel like Tyler Davison's been steady. Even Taylor Stallworth, Marcus Davenport. Hurt, yes, but I feel like you don't have to rush him in, and yet he's playing, and he's playing just fine. I think anyone who's complaining about them, get over yourself.
He came from University of Texas San Antonio, and there was going to be an adjustment anyway. I think the Saints knew that.
And he was adjusting fine until he got hurt.
Until he got injured. And once you get injured, it's going to slow you down. The rest of the team keeps going, and again, you're on the bicycle or you're rehabbing somewhere. He's going to be just fine. You could see the flashes. By next year, look, he may flash in the playoffs for you. You know, especially if you're going to be putting all that emphasis on Rankins and Jordan, there is an opportunity. I said it when they drafted him. He will be getting singled up by a tight end at times, or again, at least a tackle. He should be able to beat that one-on-one, no doubt about it. The second level as well. You know, there was a question mark about the linebackers early because they were moving them to different positions. They've settled in with Demario Davis has been a godsend, Anzalone and Klein. Those linebackers have been playing very, very well for this team.
I would argue that Demario Davis has been the best free agent signing in the NFL.
In the NFL?
In the NFL.
Wow.
Let's just think about it. Who are some of the big free agent signings that most notably? I'm pretty sure the Vikings aren't through the moon with Kirk Cousins.
Right.
They were certainly better with Case Keenum. Case Keenum's in Denver. And you think of all these big deals.
Sue.
Right. Well, yes. Sue, you know, Jimmy Graham, this, that, and the other, all these big names. I would argue that Demario Davis was the best one of the bunch. He's been the best linebacker since Jonathan Vilma.
Yes, I agree.
And you could put him at will, and he's more versatile than Vilma. You put him at will, you put him at the mic, and I do think that part of the maturation of this defense is that they figured out their linebackers. Now you're seeing, and they've been healthy. Like Demario Davis,
healthy, right?
Anzalone's healthy. AJ Klein's healthy. Remember, he got hurt late last year too. And Manti Te'o, he's inactive because he deserves to be inactive. That's where he's not fast, and he deserves to be a reserve. Craig Robertson's your special teams plug-in guy. But no, they figured out that. And once they figured that out, you combine that with the defensive front, linebackers fill in, whether it's Rankins making a play, or Klein, or Anzalone, or Davis, or Jordan, or I can name all the guys in the front seven. They've got that part figured out, and it's really made a difference. And it's why the run defense isn't a fluke. I thought for a few weeks that it could have been a fluke because everyone's throwing on them because you don't run the ball when you're down. The Falcons game was a revelation to me when Matt Ryan's your leading rusher.
Yeah.
It's like, this run defense might be pretty legit.
It was for real.
They slowed down Gurley. They slowed down Zeke Elliott.
Barkley?
Absolutely.
Come on. They've taken on some pretty serious backs this year, and they've shut them all down.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Now, you got some concerns, as I do, on the back end. Talk a little bit about it.
Eli Apple, I know people were like, raving after this game. That's fine. I feel like he is the guy that I'm waiting to make just some pass interference penalty and it blows the game, or some third down stop, he's holding, blows the game, because sometimes he holds and he doesn't get caught. And he just kind of is who he is. And you hope that the defensive front can get pressure and such. At sometimes though, has he played well? Yes. Others, I'm just leery about him. Is he better than Ken Crawley? Yes. Is he better than P.J. Williams on the outside? Yes. But we're talking about the best of mediocre bunch. I mean, and he's going to be targeted all the time because people don't want to test Marshawn Lattimore. And so I feel like that's a concern there. But can you code it? Yes. Not every team in the NFL has two very good corners.
Sure.
So can you code that? Yes. Am I seeing these big plays, say, from Marcus Williams? And is Marshawn Lattimore playing as well as he was last year? No. But I do feel like that teams don't throw on him. So I feel like after a rough start, he's gotten better. But if I have a concern, it's the back end. Now, am I super concerned? No, but when you're talking about, okay, you got to beat the Rams. Okay, we're talking about going to the Super Bowl, and you got to contend with Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. It's a razor-thin margin.
And they're going to find the weakness in the defense, and they're going to try to exploit it. There's no doubt.
Pretty sure Tom Brady is going to say, where's Eli Apple?
Exactly.
Or where isn't Marshawn Lattimore?
As Dak Prescott did.
Right.
Okay, especially guys that knew him from the NFC.
I was about to say Dallas Cowboys knew him, and that's part of that.
Yeah, no
Absolutely.
doubt. All right, Carolina at Carolina, Pittsburgh, Carolina at home to end it. Saints are the #1 seed. What do you think happens over the next 3 weeks?
I've been asked this a lot these past few days.
You and me both.
To prognosticate it, and I just feel like a loss could happen. Are they better than those teams? Absolutely. But can a loss happen? Yeah, I mean, a loss happened in Dallas. A loss almost happened in Tampa.
Tough to get them beat at home, right? I mean, I would think that Pittsburgh and Carolina at home, that's going to be tough for the Saints to lose there.
Yes.
You know, Cam's been so erratic this year. I mean, let me take this back. Cam has had his best completion percentage of his career this year, but the shoulder has flared up again. And if you watch him over the last few games, very inaccurate.
He also doesn't have the weapons.
No,
Let's be honest.
He doesn't.
Let's look at his receiving
He's got McCaffrey.
core.
That's it.
McCaffrey.
Funches.
Funches is not a number one. He's
right.
got Curtis Samuel.
DJ Moore.
DJ Moore, still no.
Right.
He does not have the weapons.
You know, Olsen's out.
Olsen's out, and he just doesn't have the weapons.
Right. It's the McCaffrey show, is what it basically is.
Absolutely. Yeah, but he has no complement.
Right.
He doesn't have, just like in the past days when it's Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams, and you've had they just don't have the same guys, and their defense isn't as good.
No, it's actually aged. If you really watch this defense, you'll see the names and go, wow, that's great. No, they look old.
Well, they have the names.
Right.
But they're just names.
Yeah, they just look old. They really do.
Right.
I think they're going to sweep because they have to sweep because the Rams are right on their tail. You know, if it's a close, I think maybe Monday night might be one that you know, Carolina's playing for their playoff lives right now. You know, you're putting the nail in the proverbial coffin if you beat them. That might be the one game there. But Pittsburgh's going to be tough. They're in a good dogfight in the AFC right now.
Yeah, it depends on probably Ben Roethlisberger's health. He's got some banged up ribs, and he's going to have to keep playing through them because now you've got the Ravens on their tail. Were way up and jumped back down to earth, similar to what Carolina's done, losing 5 in a row. And so you look at them, and of course you think, wow, we watched the Saints all season. They should beat all these teams. Absolutely. And I think you're right. If they beat Carolina, and if they beat them by 2 touchdowns, and it's kind of over, and then you get to week 17, and Carolina's like,
they've gone fishing already.
Right, exactly. That might be like a 48-10 game.
Right.
But no, I think Pittsburgh is a tricky game. But we've pinpointed these games since the schedule came out. We knew how tough these games would be.
Absolutely. Let's shift to LSU. 11th ranked in the college football poll. They're going to the Fiesta Bowl. Let's talk about Devon White first. You know, Patrick Queen said on Tuesday that White told him he's coming back for his senior year. Look, I went immediately looking at all these draft sites to see where he was listed, somewhere between 8 and the end of the first round, depending on who you're looking at. I'd love to see it. I just don't know especially if he's going to be a top 10 pick. And we know once he gets to the combine, if he does go, immediately he's going to shoot up the draft boards based on what he's going to do at the combine. I mean, there's just no other way around it. And then you get to LSU's pro day. First of all, fantastic that if he would do it, as I said on the radio show, it would be special to see him come back. I just don't know if he will. But just the possibility of a Devon White coming back for his senior year.
This is going to sound harsh. I would not love to see it because he'd be doing himself a disservice. You need to be for you. I graduated from LSU. I'm not sticking around to take another course and be this guy and not get paid any money. I mean, give me a break. He will be I'd say at worst a top 15 pick.
I agree.
At worst.
At worst, right.
What's it going to help him? No, I think he's fooling himself. And people got on me because I wrote a column on The Athletic saying, Greedy Williams, you get your butt out of there. Don't you play in the bowl game at all. No, you go do you. You've done LSU enough of a service and not gotten paid for it. Well, not gotten paid for it, we'll see. Right. But I think Devon White should sit out. I get it's honorable. Well, guess what? What happens if Jalen Smith, the same thing happens to him? Guess what? LSU's not going to certainly recoup you. Right. No way. And people talk to me about insurance policies.
But that's a fraction of what you will make.
No, you're not going to get paid. No. And I actually got this is about as random as it gets. I actually got into it with Ben McDonald on Twitter about
Ben's
this.
been getting into it with everybody on Twitter.
Well, guess what? And then I beat him down and beat him down. And he said, well, maybe I'm old school. I was like, well, guess what? If you, and I get where he's coming from. He got drafted #1. He's still pitching in the College World Series, this, that, and the other. It's not the same as flying torpedoes of human bodies wearing shells running at you at full speed. It's not the same. So I am all about player doing the best for the player. I think it would be foolish if Devon White comes back. And I have no problem telling that. If he doesn't want, I'll write it and I'll probably go see him. And he'll shun me. I'll tell him to his face, you're making a mistake. Sorry.
Well, a lot of LSU fans want him coming back. But
they're foolish because they're out for themselves. They're not out for Devon White. Oh, what happens if Devon White gets hurt? Well, he gets hurt. Well, it doesn't affect you, like the
Ben
fan.
Wilkerson, right? Remember Ben Wilkerson?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a perfect example. A guy that was going, a Remington Award winner, a guy that was looked at as the top center that was coming out in that draft, and he ends up with Cincinnati, and no career at all, pretty much done after that career ending, after that injury with LSU.
I'm all about players for players. Forget it.
What do you think about the bowl game with UCF?
People have told me that it's a lose-lose for LSU. I think that is far from the truth. If you win, guess what? You're beating a good UCF team. It helps you in recruiting. It helps validate your season.
Like 10 wins.
Exactly. 10 wins for a team that you and me probably talked about 4 months ago, 7-5.
Nobody thought they were winning this many games.
Exactly. For the program, this matters. And I think it's a good bowl matchup. Guess what? If they beat them, I know people are saying, it'll shut up UCF. But still, they're beating a good football team. They're playing in a primo bowl that they've never played in before. And I think that this is not a lose-lose. No way. You're supposed to beat them. Actually, who knows? You're maybe not supposed to beat them. They beat Auburn last year.
Right.
And so I think this is an important game for LSU, and on the same time, kind of reverting back to what we're talking about, not important enough for, say, Greedy Williams to play. If they were playing for a national championship,
total different story.
He would be playing.
Right.
But this is more important for the program, not necessarily for any kind of draft stock.
Well, especially for the narrative of the program. And again, I've discussed it on the radio show. We've talked about on this show. You look at what happened last year, losing to Notre Dame in the bowl game. All of a sudden, again, takes a little bit of shine off the season. Then Patrick Surtain bolts to Alabama, and all of a sudden, then the suspensions and the off-season issues that we're having with the players. You know, going into the season, it was tumultuous. Where again, if you beat Notre Dame, maybe you don't lose Surtain. Maybe it's you're going in with a whole different mindset and a whole different narrative into this season. You're in the same position again. You beat UCF. You're going to be You're going to be in the top 10 probably at the end of the season, the last poll. You're going to have 10 wins. You've got this early signing period that's going to happen next week, which is going to be huge for the program. Maybe you're corralling all those seniors that are going to be coming to LSU. Maybe some of those guys are holding out to the February signing period. But the narrative changes for the entire program with 10 wins, a major bowl win going forward.
And also, it does. If you lose this game, you'd have lost 3 of your last 5. You'd have lost to Alabama. You beat Rice. You barely beat Arkansas. You lose to A&M, and then you lose the bowl game. It does take some steam out of things. But if you still look at it, and recruits might not look at it this way, but this is the reality. If they would finish 9-4, it's a way better 9-4 than they finished last year.
Absolutely.
But I understand where recruits coming from. What's going on?
Well, and it's a perception. I mean, it's the perception of the program. You know, you're trying to get back to elite status. In order to get to elite status, you've got to take that next step. This is on the way to the next step for this program. So I think it's huge. Anybody that's overlooking UCF, they don't want to be there, you're crazy.
I don't think people are overlooking UCF, but they see it they just blasé. They should beat them. No, they actually, this is UCF is good.
Especially with not having your full complement of players in that secondary and the way they can throw the football. Tulane 6-6, 5-3 in the American Athletic Conference. They are in Orlando right now as we speak for the Cure Bowl. They'll take on University of Louisiana Lafayette on Saturday. Your thoughts?
I think it's a great bowl matchup, and I'm glad it's not happening in New Orleans. New Orleans, I get it, but no, I think it's great for each program. But
to travel, right?
Yes,
to get that atmosphere.
But also specifically for Tulane, it's almost like a battleground matchup. You're basically politicking against ULL because if you're talking about in-state recruits, you're battling for the same kids, but of course Tulane has the higher academic expectations, but still, you're battling for basically the same crop, the crop that's below the Power 5, and that's what you're battling for. And I think it's important for Tulane. If they win, that could certainly elevate them up. And I could just tell you, I was on the sideline the entire time when they were playing Navy to clinch, and it was typical Tulane, oh my gosh, they're about to blow this thing.
Right.
And
well,
you could
throwing the football, and
and you could see the tenseness,
right.
And yet I thought the fact that Tulane overcame that, and I think I could tell you the cool and calm nature of Justin McMillan, if you don't have that, you're not doing that, because he made some mistakes and he went out on that drive, and I'm literally standing in between Devon Walker and Troy Dannon, and everybody's like, "Oh no," shaking their heads. But when that happened, and I could tell you when
gutsy call by
well,
Willie
I could
Fritz,
tell you
right?
Willie Fritz. He says, "Oh, I asked Troy Dannon." He didn't actually say a word. He was about 15, maybe 20 yards away. He just walked down and did this, and Troy just went, no words.
Right.
That was it. This was before McMillan threw the touchdown. He throws the touchdown, and they go for it, get 2, and I think it's kind of a little bit of a game changer for Tulane that they're legitimate, and they do need this win.
No, they do. They
Yes.
do. It's the next step for the program.
Yes.
And Willie Fritz talked about going from 4 to 5 wins to 6 wins within the American Athletic Conference, and that is huge for them. But this is the next step. Get to a bowl game, win the bowl game. It's going to help in recruiting. You mentioned, you're doing it basically as an in-state rival, even though you don't want to call it a rival, but you're a rival for them when it comes to recruiting. No, it's huge. It is huge for this program, and really good to see, honestly. Really good to see, because they got robbed last year.
I think you can ask our friend Todd Graffini.
Oh, I know.
He would say the
He would say
same
the
thing.
exact thing.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it. And I actually like Tulane this weekend in the Cure Bowl. I think that they got a lot to play for, and I think they're going to come back with a win.
Yeah, I think against Appalachian State, I think you look. That's probably the one time I actually watched ULL this year in that championship game. But yeah, I think Tulane should win this game.
Yeah, I do as well. Larry Holt, The Athletic, quickly, one more time, how can folks get involved with The Athletic?
TheAthletic.com. You can go check it out. Of course, TheAthletic.com/New Orleans. And look, national coverage, local coverage. We cover all scopes in depth.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Got to check it out, folks. Got to check it out. Thanks for being with us.
You got it, E.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. Also, statewide, 9 o'clock, Pelican Sports Television every Friday night. Catch me on the radio, noon to 2, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, and the iHeart Radio app. You can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. All the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports can also be seen at ericasher.com as well. Special thanks to Larry Holder of The Athletic. Also want to thank our great folks that support this program, our fantastic underwriters. Please support those guys, as well as our fantastic staff here at WLAE-TV. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, also Alex Chacon, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.